So you're welcome to just launch right in. This is our friends Sue and Otter. They talk to extraterrestrials. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty much.
What else would you like to know?
Jan, do you want to ask something?
Okay, I got a question for you. Since your website is called Official First Contact, I would like to address the new changes in this whole thing. Because it was supposed that there was a plan that in the autumn of 2021, there will be Official First Contact, where we would meet 32 different star nations and so on. But on the very day of the solstice, of the winter solstice of 2021, Telkom had a big announcement or
from the Federation.
From the Federation. And I can read it here.
Go ahead.
Yeah. The Federation passes along this announcement. The multi-phased unfolding of Earth Official First Contact has begun and progress continues in stages. The next wave involves a steady increase in direct witnessing and or filming of pilots and crews planet-wide. Then there are also other parts. So the slow but steady increase of witnessing Star Nation personnel worldwide begins immediately. This decision was the Federation's choice, not ours, and was based upon, first, your sun and solar system health status. Second, your military's responses to the increase in Star Nation presence. Third, the remaining threat of a false flag scenario. And the fourth, Kevahu emotional readiness. Kevahu meaning Earth human, so our emotional readiness. So the Official First Contact will continue with the best photos or videos of Star Nation personnel provided by those who have already put aside their fears.
When Telkom first talked to us about Official First Contact, it was before the pandemic. And the Federation's plan at that point in time, when we first spoke to him 8 years ago, was to have 32 separate star nations being introduced over the course of the fall of 2021. A number of things shifted that initial plan because some of the star nations visiting our world had to be checked for whether or not our pandemic would affect that nation as another type of human nation, had to be tested amongst all of the star nations in all of their variations. And the emotional readiness of North America seemed to be doing fine, but there were other continents whose emotional readiness wasn't quite where they wanted it to be. And so that was part of the emotional readiness part of it. They told or have said publicly that if there is a false flag scenario and a nation or a group here on Earth makes up a lie that said, ET is attacking, we will save you, and that's how they introduce extraterrestrials to Earth, then that many of the Federation members would consider that extremely immature and a bad check mark to indicate our planet was not ready for contact like that. They have also kept track of the degrading health of our star. Our star is moving into an area of the galaxy that is not kind to stars. And so our sun's more growing volatility. Our sun's growing explosive plasma bursts, CMEs, or sneezes outward of plasma. They are monitoring that increase in this solar cycle and the next solar cycle of 11 years very closely, because historically, when our solar system has gone into this area of the galaxy, it has a history of either very big coronal mass ejections or micronova events, which are even bigger, even worse. Historically, when that's happened to Earth, our planet has been knocked back to starting again. I mean, it's a big reset. It's like the sort of a big historic planet-wide event that would kill off most of the plant life, most of the animal life, and have it restart. And so we have entered into this bad area of the galaxy before, and do so on a regular basis because our solar system revolves and around with the galaxy. And so we enter into this turbulent zone every 12,500 years-ish. Our last ice age ended the last time we came into this area of the galaxy. And the Ponte's concern and the Federation's concern is that if we have a very strong Earth-directed event coming from our sun, that it could wipe things out here very quickly. But the other factor is that bursts from our sun also affect the vehicles, the spacecraft of all of the visiting nations too. And so it presents a danger to the star nations in our solar system who come for our official first contact, just as much as it endangers us here on Earth. Does that make sense? So that was a factor. The change in plan that the Federation proposed was to take a period of time, and we're assuming that it will be less than a year, but we don't know that for sure, that they will be captured on camera more, not only with their ships in the sky, but pictures as close as you and I talking to each other right now. An up close and personal image of someone in front of a camera or a video camera, and having them voluntarily know that they're being filmed. So that is, in their estimation, the next safe step toward putting out to Earth humans that our extraterrestrial neighbors are here. And do not be surprised if it's a different star nation in Europe or Asia than it is in North America or South America or Africa or Australia. It would not surprise me for different star nations to come forth in different continents, because we have 30 plus land-based star nations interacting with Earth now that wish to participate.
Including Sasquatch.
That's right.
Yeti.
That's including the Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct. There are Sasquatch that are interstellar now, along with the indigenous folks that reside here. They're friends of the Ponte.
Yeah. And I also noticed that on the 7th November, so that's quite earlier than the official announcement by Telkom, Judy answered an interesting question. How will the first contact be? So I think they knew a bit earlier than December. I think they
Some
knew
of it.
Yeah,
Some
right?
of it. Some of it was rumor. Yeah.
She said, first, there will be a gradual buildup of sightings of ships of many kinds, as well as distant images of Star Nation people themselves. Next will be footage that your governments cannot explain away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They've tried to contact governments and world leaders before. Some people here in the United States say, well, go to the president's house, just land on their lawn and walk in the door and introduce yourself.
Yeah, and you get a rocket right up your fanny.
Nobody would survive that. So they have tried contacting or establishing contact with military bases. You have maybe seen the stories out of England near the Rendlesham Forest and the military base that way. There are a number of military facilities here in North America that they ended up shutting down the nukes, the nuclear weapons, and showing the local military that
they can control
they didn't have to be present to shut them down, that they could shut down their systems from their craft. Likewise, though, at least several groups around the world have taken crashed vehicles, craft UFOs, crashed ships, and tried to understand the engineering of them and been successful enough to recreate some of it so that now we have things like microelectronics that comes from a Star Nation ship initially. We have an understanding of the fact that their craft create a field that many people use the term anti-gravity. The Ponte corrected us and said, well, it's more like anti-friction.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we are aware that anytime that there is a ship that has crashed to the ground, the military powers that find those ships that have crashed usually are not very kind to the occupants that survived the crash. And so when the Ponte still do not have any example anywhere on the planet of any Star Nation who have a crashed ship that has been greeted in a friendly, helpful manner, except for the indigenous populations. The local everyday folks have been more helpful than the military by far.
Most indigenous cultures accept the contact.
Sure.
And have had contact.
That's true.
No matter where they have been in the world.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we have stories from many of the Native American tribes that talk about their interaction with this Star Nation or that Star Nation. And it's that way for most continents here, that the local people who saw a craft come down eventually got over their fear enough to approach it. And so the other thing that the Ponte are glad to see is that many of us who are ready for contact, whether we're where you are, where we are, anywhere in the world, those of us who have put down our fear and are ready for contact are the people that they feel safest to go up to first and walk in front of a camera. Because they know they're not going to get shot. There is a danger to any and all of the Star Nations around the world right now, no matter who they are, no matter what they look like, that if somebody walks out of a spaceship or a craft of some kind that is not Earth human, and the military or the government shows up, the likelihood of them being shot is very high.
Mm-hmm.
So they take their lives into their hands every time they leave their facility.
And do they have any kind of technology or abilities to move through reality, like to step into the physical reality somewhere else and like disappear or teleport somewhere else in case of danger?
They can cloak, meaning they have a way of moving out of our eyesight spectrum range. Our eyesight is limited compared to other species. And so they find that moving just out of our eyesight spectrum range is not difficult for them. That is a technical thing for them, not an innate thing. They find that they can move through walls and walk through doors, but not layers and layers of solid rock. So if the military took one of their people 2 miles underground, can they go through all of that rock and go rescue their person? No. No, they cannot. So there are limits to what they can move through and how. They do have a way to go from their craft into our homes and back again, either just by themselves or with one of us. So can they come down through your ceiling, enter into your bathroom and have access to the rest of your place from there? Sure they can. That's not hard at all. And in fact, believe it or not, the most common room that they will enter into in anyone's home is the bathroom. Why? Because you only go into that room when you have to. You don't go into your bathroom unless you need to. So it's not often a room that's occupied. And it's easy to find where all the plumbing goes to. So it's an easy room to locate from up in the air from a craft. Yeah. And so they found that our bathrooms are the quietest, most unoccupied room in our home to go in and out of. They've learned what all kinds of toilets look like, I guess.
The best one was the bidets.
Oh, yeah. They didn't know what a bidet was until we explained it. They didn't understand the role of toilet paper either until we explained it. And so we've had quite a few discussions on waste elimination from the human body and how it's alike and how it's different. And believe it or not, they laugh at fart jokes just as much as we do. When I learned that, I went, oh, dear God. Really?
Oh, that's funny.
And to be honest, it's true. Because a foul smell is a foul smell is a foul smell. So if it doesn't smell very nice, then they have a reaction just like we do. They try and be polite and don't say anything. But if it's boys talking to other boys, they don't care so much. And they have fart jokes just like we do. Okay, I guess it's overlapping culture.
Yeah.
Who would think?
It's a religious experience.
Only if you do it in church. But we digress. What else would you guys like to know? I knew this conversation would end up getting there somehow.
Yeah. Okay, so you are also, you don't have contact with just Ponte, you have been also a big Sasquatch researcher. And I would like to ask you if you know about Sasquatch in Europe, because there's not much talk about in Czech about them. So
well, it doesn't mean you don't have them.
Oh yeah, you have. We've spoken with the Russian scientists who have been studying them for years.
All over your area, no matter if it's the former USSR Poland or the Czech Republic or Germany or wherever, if you have forests,
and
if you have
mountains.
high mountains with above the tree line with just rock and snow, you have Sasquatch of some kind. The Ponti are the ones that introduced us to Sasquatch. I didn't know anything about them before talking to the Ponti, but because the two nations are friends, we learned a great deal about what's normal, what do they do, how do they live, what do they look like, is it just one species all across Earth? Are they indigenous to here, or do they come from an interstellar planet somewhere else? And so we've had quite an education about the Sasquatch from the Ponti. And then after we learned that they were friends, began to teach ourselves more. And so we have a very good understanding now of what they are like, what's average, what's outside of the norm. And we were asked by the Ponti when Tani dictated the Telepathy 101 primer to us. We had handwritten notes initially from her, and we were still working on the exact wording of the translation. And they contacted us one day and said, we would like you to go teach this. And I went, I don't know if we're ready. You will teach it, and you need to contact this person. And they spelled out the name of a Sasquatch researcher who the day before had announced that they were having their first ever conference on the internet. And so Otter and I went to this conference, and it was up near the Canadian border in the state of Washington, at the very northwest corner of the United States. And so it took us 3 days to drive there. When we got there, he and I had Sasquatch interaction on that location. That was my first time that I recalled ever having it. And then I thought back to when I was in my 20s, and indeed I'd had another visitation by a Sasquatch on a canoe trip. I just didn't know that's what it was then. But now that I know more about them, I recognize that my previous experience had been having a Sasquatch walk up to my tent and then walk away because it woke me up. So we have learned, what do they eat? How do they live? What is their society like? What kind of things do they do in their free time? What kind of structures do they build? Do they go underground? And so we've learned a great deal about their capabilities here on our world. And the fact that there are some Sasquatch star nations who come visit the Sasquatch nations here. That part is true. So the Sasquatch, after we first began teaching the telepathy at the Sasquatch conference, the Sasquatch themselves came to us and asked if we would please draw them and do so as they see each other instead of as monsters. Because all of the usual depictions of Sasquatch portray them as mean, evil, nasty beasts. And they didn't want that. They wanted the children, the grandmothers, the grandfathers, the whimsy and the humorous and the everyday stuff. And so I began drawing Sasquatch at their request. I think that was 2016.
Yeah,
September.
something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now I draw portraits of Sasquatch or their actions, as well as portraits of the Ponti, as well as other star nations. And in fact, one of the Ponti has been a very, very strong influence in teaching me to develop an artistic style. That prior to them asking me to draw them, it had been 40 years since I had drawn a person's face. I'd drawn some other things. I'd drawn some animals. I'd done some other kinds of art, but I had not drawn a portrait since I was 17 years old. And so I had to learn all over again. Not that I was ever very good to begin with. So,
but we thank you for all these beautiful drawings, because they are absolutely gorgeous. And at least instead of photographs, what is the best thing? Just to draw something so we can see.
Well, those drawings are all done from our experiences, personal contact with each one of these individuals.
And we also gave each of the individuals who I drew the say in what kind of a portrait do you want? Do you want it happy? Do you want it sad? What do you want your portrait to say? How do you want to pose it? Should we light it this way? Should we light it that way? Do you want color? Do you want black and white? And so just like if you go to a photographer and say, I don't know what I want, can you show me some examples? Some of the Ponti and other star nations came saying, I don't know, give me some examples to look at and I'll tell you what I like. And so we ended up suggesting some ideas to them. But when I did a portrait of any of them, whether it was Ponti, Sasquatch, or another star nation, I chatted them up. I talked to them. Small talk, a little bit here, a little bit there, and learned about who they were and what they liked and what they did in their spare time, just in the course of drawing them. And that learning process was delightful and unexpected, because I never knew what they were going to say.
And so how do you communicate with them during these processes?
Sometimes it's out loud, and sometimes it's telepathically, and sometimes it's both.
Okay.
It depends on the nation. As I sit with a sketch pad and draw, and I've got 3 sketch pads sitting beside me as we're talking here, I will show them the progress that I've made. Say, what do you think? What's right? What's wrong? What do you want changed? And sometimes I'll say that out loud and not even know that I've said it out loud. Sometimes I will telepathically say it and not even be aware that I've asked a question. It just is almost an automatic connection. And so it's wide and varied, but the whole process has been draw things to a good stopping point in a rough draft, and then set it out overnight so that the person that I'm drawing has some time to come study it, look at it, and give me revision ideas. If they aren't here overnight, then it stays up on what I call my art altar here in the living room until that individual does come back and give me feedback. So that's been an interesting journey too, because I never know from day to day who's going to walk in the door and want a drawing done.
And do they have their own art, or are they talented in art?
Oh, very much so. Just like us, you bet. Sculpture, art, painting with light, dance. They have their own cultural loves, just like we do. They have art that is in sync with music, so that you get a light show at the same time you get a sound show. And we have similar things too, but they enjoy seeing the combinations that we come up with and hearing the sounds that different kinds of music put out. So banjo music is very different from flute music, is very different from a drum solo. Okay. They want to hear it all. And they want to know what the most popular things are in each culture so that they can hang on to them and save them. Nice. If something happens to us because of the health of our son, if we run into a problem, they want our various cultures preserved so that when it's safe to come back out again, we still have some of the parts of those cultures that they can bring back and reintroduce.
That's beautiful.
So, it's what neighbors do to help each other.
Yeah.
If your next door neighbor had a fire and lost everything, and they'd given you something, let's say a CD of their favorite music, in order to get them started again, you might get them a CD of their favorite music back to get them going again. If the Ponte used a really good example when we talked about the solar things coming up for our planet. And I said, are you and some of the other star nations going to come with ships and help us if we have a problem with our sun? And they said, there is not a single star nation who has enough room on ships for almost 8 billion people on this planet. There is no star nation that can save that many people or offload that many people onto ships quickly enough, safely enough to rescue everyone. Cannot be done. However, the last time your star did this area of the galaxy, 7 star nations took Earth humans underground and kept them safe until it was safe to come to the surface again. And they would do that again with groups. They do have hospital ships coming to help. But again, we are not the only sentient nation on our world that they would come to help. The aquatic nations would come help the aquatic sentient nations in our oceans. The whales, the dolphins and porpoises, the octopus, the deep water aquatics that have light languages and flash light patterns to communicate with one another that we don't even understand and cannot translate because we're just not that advanced yet. So 75% of our world is ocean. 75% of the star nations that come visit Earth are aquatics and go into our oceans and are not interested in us at all because we're not mature enough in their eyes.
Yeah. And following on that, what you said, there is a question from the people who follow you. And it's what is Ponte's view on us people, Earth humans? What are their views on us? Their views on us?
As a whole, we allow our fears to dictate our actions and frequently jump to action steps before we consider all the consequences. Our fight or flight response of adrenaline can take us to extreme behaviors. And that extreme behavior, unpredictable behavior, action, violent actions bother them. There are many individuals who are mature enough to handle the idea that our star nation friends have come to help us here on Earth. And there are many, many more that have their education about ETs, UFOs, just from movies and Hollywood and things like that, and they don't have an accurate view. The Star Nations and the Ponti do not quite understand why their presence is lied about and remains hidden for as long as it has, because when they first approached Earth humans to try and merge and introduce themselves, the Earth humans here in North America, in the United States, asked for extra time to get everyone ready. They were just coming off of a radio broadcast called The War of the Worlds with Orson Welles. And that radio broadcast was about UFOs that landed on Earth and scary ET monsters coming out and destroying things.
Yeah, in my hometown.
And they thought that it was real, and many people panicked. To avoid that idea, the powers that be that made the decisions here recommended that we have a period of a minimum of 50 years to introduce Earth humans to the idea that we have nice neighbors out in the galaxy, and to get them ready to be introduced to those neighbors. And the information coming out of the Hollywood media, the television, and even the spread of rumors here on the internet has been wide and varied and not all positive at all. They also do not understand why, when they know the name of a star nation, they are not using that name if they've been introduced to those people. So why are they keeping it hidden? The Star Nations are trying to understand, when the Earth humans were given all this time to get the lay people, you and I, ready for contact, why they didn't make better strides or steps toward that. They don't think they did a very good job.
They didn't do it at all.
And when they heard the rumors about what is called a false flag scenario, which is the lie, the potential lie of ET has destroyed things on Earth. They are a threat. All of them are threats. We must shoot them down. Okay, that sort of a lie. The Star Nations look at that idea even as completely culturally immature. Why would you ever start a new relationship with a neighbor based on a lie? Why would you even think about doing it that way? And so there are parts of our culture they think are not ready, and parts of our culture that they think individual wise versus individual wise are ready. So they've got a mixture that they're dealing with, and they know that. Even if they come down and act in the most non-threatening manner they can act, their estimate is 75% of the individuals who see them will run away screaming. If you think about the average Earth human, that's probably accurate.
Yeah.
So they're a little disappointed in the idea that we as children are taught that all voices that sound like someone else in our heads are considered schizophrenia. That's what we're taught. You should not have other voices in your head, period, end of sentence. Telepathy is a lie, doesn't exist. All of that, they go, what? What do you mean? So again, that is when we learn about something new, but we don't share it honestly, so that everyone benefits, they don't get it.
Mm.
as a telepathic culture, they all automatically share new discoveries. Isn't that cool? Did you hear? Yeah, that's neat. We don't do it that way. So
well, I
our fears stop us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I just only agree with you. You're right. Yeah, because the fear and perhaps also immaturity and secrecy does not support telepathy, because otherwise we would have to live in cooperation and sharing things.
Exactly.
Yeah, and you wanted to ask something, go on.
Yeah, I think like many of these bad things often are because there are misunderstandings and stuff like that, because we don't understand many concepts, or we have those concepts from Hollywood films, etc. And one of the things I haven't heard you speak about, I look through the Twitter archive, is our cattle mutilations. And I would like you to react on one quote I found from Linda Moulton Howe, and I think it's quite true. So the quote goes, "Could there be a positive lens in which you could look at extraterrestrials interacting with this planet, mutilating animals, and come to the conclusion of what a couple of abductees have said to me over the last 42 years? And it goes like this. Well, it was a reptilian in front of me. They took this cow up in a beam, and they took me up to show me what they did. They put the tubes in and took out the blood, took tissue, etc. And when I seemed to be horrified, I got this telepathic, well, this is what you do on Earth. You humans eat millions of animals, especially cattle. So what she concluded is, so are the other intelligences involved with this planet really that much different from us humans?
That's a good quote. What the Ponti have told us is that the vast majority of cattle mutilations are being done by Earth humans. And cattle are being dropped back into farmers' fields to keep them afraid, to keep the myth of
perpetuate the fear
perpetuated, keep the fear perpetuated and going. The Ponti don't do any of that. They honor four-footed, and in fact, they don't even eat meat. When we asked them about that, they looked at us confused and said, "You mean the scalpel, the laser scalpel stuff that the other Earth humans are doing?" And I went, "Oh, yeah, that's probably right." So our own people are doing a lot of it. I'm not going to say all of it, because I will agree that the reptilian and reptarian, and the difference is reptarian individuals' ancestry originated here on Earth. Reptilian ancestry may have originated in another star system, on another planet. The reptilians and reptarians and some of the other human-looking star nations are carnivorous, do eat meat, are omnivores, have this wide and varied diet that includes poultry and beef or pork or fish or whatever, along with fruits and vegetables. And so they look at the precision of some of the laser scalpel work and look at the patterns of what is being harvested. The vast majority of mutilations harvest the most sensitive, most innervated tissue, whether that's reproductive tissue or tongues or areas of the body that have more nerves or have a specialized function that is required for whatever they're doing. And so the Ponti said you cannot blame the star nations for all of those mutilations, because the majority of them are not being done by star nations. They're being done by you. Oh, okay. So I'm not sure how to explain the right and wrong of it. And I agree with the quote that you gave me regarding Linda Moulton Howe. We do utilize and do carve up, so to speak, animals for our own use all the time.
Yeah, thank you. That also that really cleared it up for me, because there are many different perspectives, and this just, yeah, it makes sense to me. Thanks.
Sure.
And so if I may ask, what is Ponti's opinion about the negative beings? Perhaps, like, I don't want to say aliens, but let's put it that way.
Yeah, but the negative Star Nation folks. Okay. We've talked to them about that too. And while the Federation keeps Earth in protected planet status for the most part, there are still negative individuals that get through and can be found here. That part is true. Are all Star Nations that visit us positive? No, some of them are greedy, just like some of our people can be greedy. Some of them still deal with having other, quote, lesser races work for them. I don't know if you'd call it slavery or servitude, but that is seen, still done by some Star Nations throughout the galaxy. Not all Star Nations are on the same cultural advancement level. You will find extremely advanced cultures that visit here, and cultures that really aren't no whole lot different than our level of advancement is right now. And they still deal with issues in their population of greed and taking advantage and lying. So we aren't the only nation out there that knows how to do that. But when I think about the vast majority of nations, I would have to say more than 98% are positive. What do we do with the negative ones? Well, you do the same thing you do if you meet another Earth human that's negative. If you see somebody on the street and they are giving off this dangerous kind of vibe, you don't approach them. If a Star Nation lands and is giving off some kind of a negative vibe, then we would say don't approach. But know that at least of the nations that are associated with this Federation group that are helping and have been helping us grow culturally as a planetary body of people, that the help that we've been getting far, far, far outweighs the few of the negative people that slip through the cracks and arrive here. So are they here to eat us? No, no. Are they here to enslave us? No, not generally. Are they here to injure us or take away our gold or our diamonds or our platinum? No. There have been abuses by Star Nations in the past, but that has been stopped by the Federation for the most part. And that's when the Federation put us into protected planet status. So what do you do with a bad nation? You ask the good nations for help dealing with the bad nations. You look to your allies. And so if you're having an issue that's a real issue that's ongoing, you call for backup with people that you know that do have the technology to deal with it, because currently we don't.
And so are you in contact, or have you been contacted by other than the Pontis and Sasquatch? And you said that it's nearly like over 30 different Star Nations. Have you met them all, perhaps?
No, I haven't met them all. When I draw them, we either have them show up and show us what they look like, or they telepathically contact us and let us know what they look like, or the Ponti describe them to us and help us illustrate them accurately. Mm-hmm. So it's happened all kinds of different ways. When we need corrections to any illustration, we usually invite that particular star nation to come interact and give a yes, no, yeah, we like it, we don't like it, this needs changing, this doesn't, this is accurate, this part isn't. We try and get it directly from the star nation themselves. We can't always do that, but we try as much as we can to do that. How many nations have we met before even coming to New Mexico to meet the Ponti? I'd already interacted with 3. Okay, I don't know, 4 if you include Sasquatch. And
4 or 5.
Otter also had 4 or 5 interactions with different individuals. He had a really interesting interaction with a water being when he was a soldier in the Vietnam War back in the late 1960s. And so he's seen Sasquatch, he's seen water beings, he's seen Ponti. I don't know if he's...
Sarns.
Oh, yeah.
Orions.
Oh, that's right. Sauron is like an amphibian. Kind of a reptilian snout look, only the skin is different.
Similar to a salamander.
Yeah, or a frog. Mm-hmm.
Water doggies.
Mm-hmm. Right, real similar to that.
Yeah.
So have we met and illustrated a number of star nations, a dozen or so plus?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have. Have we met all of them? No, not in person, all of them. But the ones that we've met will happily tell you what our experience about them was. So, what else can we look at?
Jan, do you have other questions?
Yeah, okay. There's another question for you. And that one is, what should we the people, do to make the world a better place from the Ponti experience?
Learn what the concept of right-mindedness is and live that way. Right-mindedness considers other people. Right-mindedness considers future generations.
Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Right-mindedness involves treating other people the way you want to be treated. And so right-mindedness is behaving in a way that doesn't involve lying, but does involve emotional honesty, and is all about finding solutions to problems in a nonviolent way, is all about living in balance with our physical world and staying connected with the collective consciousness all day, every day.
The spiritual world.
The spiritual world and the physical world find a balance in our lives and in a right-minded way that helps us make good decisions that not only are for ourselves, but for the people we interact with. And so it's that inner kindness. And sometimes it's as simple as the same kind of kindness that you see one kindergartner have for another. It doesn't have to be highly educated to be right-minded. You just have to be able to, in a gentle, considerate, empathic way, treat other people and our world the way you want to be treated. And that includes all of the animals in our world, all of the plants in our world, and the world itself. Mm-hmm. So of all the things that I could think of, other than learning telepathy so that we can communicate easier, the concept of living in a right-minded fashion And teaching that generation after generation would be one of the strongest things that they could bring to us that I think would be a lasting positive effect.
Yeah, and you know, that's kind of that golden rule that every culture kind of talks about, not to hurt, not to do something that for us it wouldn't be pleasant and so on. So yeah, so we are getting kind of back to the roots of what even our cultures are talking about.
You don't have to live as a religious person to
be
treat
spiritual
other people the way you would like to be treated. You don't even have to live as a spiritual person. You could be an atheist and still live in a right-minded fashion. Although you miss out on a whole lot if you try to do that. So, yep, we like that simple golden rule concept also. And I think that you would probably find if you got all of the spiritual and religious leaders from all over our planet to sit in one place at one time, that would be one of the things that they could recommend as being something that everybody could share without any issue at all. Live in a right-minded way. Treat other people in a right-minded manner. Yes.
And what would be Ponti's relationship with Creator or with their own spiritual understanding? How is that?
They use the concept of the all, meaning everything, every conscious being, every unseen world being, every dimension, every blade of grass that's ever been alive, that is encompassing in the all. All right. So your word for God as creator of all things might also be defined as the all.
Or good.
Okay. When we ask them about that, they also have this understanding of the role of the collective consciousness in the all as well. And so that unseen world of billions and billions and more souls that may or may not have a physical body and are connected to us all the time, around us all the time. That is all, that also brings up part of their concept of the all. So the collective consciousness is a very big deal to them. And understanding that if you need to make a decision and you don't have physical people around you to ask, that the collective consciousness has people connected to you that could help you answer a question that you're unsure about. And they talk about telepathy and prayer overlapping in those areas. Prayer is simply telepathy with creator and creation. You don't do anything different except stay in your heartfelt self to speak to creator and creation. And when you deal with telepathic emotional honesty, you kind of do the same thing. So they use that analogy. If you can pray, you can do telepathy. But they also use the analogy that if you have the capability of dreaming, you can also be telepathic, because it's in that similar deep, slower brainwave state that you do that communication anyway, just like when you're dropping off to sleep. So, yep, hope that helps.
Thank you so much. And I think we have been nearly 2 hours. So
I know, it goes fast.
Slowly maybe we should honor your time. Jan, do you have any more questions or anything towards the end?
Maybe, Sue, you could tell just a bit about the Ponti just recently, a few days they talked about their holiday of like gratitude. Could you just describe it in brief, and then we will shortly
Every year in January on the full moon, the first full moon after the winter solstice. And so this is the first full moon after the winter solstice. They go into seclusion for 4 days, and they call it their thank you ceremony or thank you holiday. And I'm trying to remember Jinjite. I've heard it both ways. Jinjita, I think, is the most common pronunciation that I hear from them as to what this thank you ceremony is called. But the premise of it is very simple. They go into seclusions all by themselves. They are permitted soup to sip during this 4-day period of time. But while they are in seclusion, their instructions are to ask nothing for themselves or anyone else, and to only say thank you for as many things as they can possibly think of. They have a focus of mind, heart, body, spirit. And so each day has a dedicated focus of aspects of the heart or aspects of their thinking, the mind, that they focus on during those days. You are permitted pen and paper or pencil and paper, if you wish, to write or draw with. But other than that, and you can do your seclusion indoors or out, but it is a time of reflection and introspection. By the time you have spent hours upon hours saying nothing but thank you for everything you can think of, it changes you. It resets you on the inside. Mm-hmm. The negative parts of you kind of dissipate, and the realization of what you really truly have, instead of focusing on what you don't have, comes forward. And so it, for them, is a very powerful part of their culture and their emotional reset patterns. You have to remember, as a telepathic society, they're almost never secluded. They always have somebody else's voice close by in their heads. This is the one 4-day period of time where they take a break telepathically from other people and focus on the quiet and their connection with the all, or with nature, or becoming a better person. So that's the thank you ceremony that starts for them tomorrow. And on Twitter, they've been asked to outline, if you as an Earth human want to participate along with them, how should you do that? And they've been explaining how that is to come about, and ideas that you could, of ways that you could participate in their thank you ceremony. So does that help?
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Just for all the viewers, they can find you on the official firstcontact.com. Also, do read the Telepathy 101. And if you are maybe an organizer of C5, I really do recommend your book, Inviting ET. Yeah. So thank you very much for your time today.
C5 by yourself, you can do it that way too.
Yeah.
And I have a YouTube channel. Sue Walker is the YouTube channel. Just remember, my first name, Sue, does not have an E on the end like is traditionally spelled. If you look up the YouTube channel, you will see portraits of Sasquatch, portraits of the Ponti, lessons in archaeoplanetography examples, things that the Ponti have shared with us. And if they go to officialfirstcontact.com, one of the things along with the Telepathy 101 primer I recommend people watch is a presentation called Why We Are Here, where the Ponti explain what they're doing on Earth and what brought them here in the first place. So I think you'd find that very helpful, and you've translated that into local language, and appreciate that very much, Jan. We like it when people can put things into the local languages that your friends and neighbors understand, so that you can talk about it later and discuss what you think about it. And I think that that's a good one for people to start with. If you want to hear the funny stories, go to Close Encounters of the Pontel Kind on YouTube. And there are 6 episodes of the amusing side of Ponti visit or Sasquatch. So thank you for having Otter and I on today. And thank you for getting this out there to all the people. We really, really appreciate it, and couldn't do this without you guys. So
thank you so much.
Yeah, we thank you.
Yeah.
All righty.
We are really, really thankful and with gratitude that you found time to meet us. And
that part was easy. Yeah. So glad you asked. So if you
good night, you all.
Yeah, good night for you guys, and good lunchtime for us. I think I better find out what Otter wants for lunch. So we will let you go for now. And if you need us back, just you know how to contact us.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, and bye.